Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here. mdevcamp was one of my goals to actually attend this year because I heard so many good things about this conference, and being a speaker here is a quite big honor for me. I really appreciate it, and I hope it will be really good for you and beneficial for you as well. So today we are going to talk about how Flutter works under the hood. Before we go through that, let me introduce you myself so you know a bit more about me. And who I am is basically I'm Salih, and I'm a Flutter and Dart GDE. And I am working as a senior mobile engineer at a fintech company called Klar. And good thing about this company is we are making all of our products in. We have over 100,000 users, and we are actually delivering everything that we have in Flutter. So whatever information that I bring you here will be actually the information that we are using in our product. I'm a community person. I love being part of the community. I've been giving talks all around the world. I've been writing articles. I've been founding new uh, communities all around the world. Because I live in Berlin, so we started the Flutter Berlin meetup there. Meetups like every month we have great speakers, and we just like get to get the community from Berlin. And also I created a Flutter Turkey community. What we do is we are creating new and fresh content for every person in Turkey, because like we know that talking and speaking English is a luxury. Like not everybody has this luxury. We go, we talk to the owner and actually bring that some extra information and like conduct workshops and etc. So this is one of my motivation, and that's why I'm here to actually bring you even more new information. So before we go through, I will have the most classic question that you can think of. It is, what is Flutter, right? You all, I'm sure like most of you already heard about it. It's like quite fresh and everybody's really excited, or at least like wants to learn what it is and how it works. And what Flutter is actually, Flutter is Google's UI toolkit for building beautiful apps for mobile web and desktop. Like this is the marketing definition. What we mean by that is, just imagine that you have full control over all of your pixels, and you have a great performance plus great developer experience. So what you want to do, you will be able to do it with Flutter. And one thing that we always need to keep in mind is actually this will be performant, because whatever we do and what other platforms that we talk about as hybrid approaches or cross-platform approach, they either fail on performance or they either fail on the platform that they bring in. So what we want to do is we want to bring you the platform freedom, so you will have web, desktop, and iOS and Android, but it will be also performant. So today we will learn about obviously how this performance work in lower level. Let's go back. Yeah. Let's talk about how Flutter works on higher level. What do we mean by higher level? Like, first of all, Flutter brings us a lot of extra new technologies that they already have, so we can use them to have extra nice features that we can have a better developer experience. By this, what we mean. First of all, I know that like some of you might have some prejudice about Dart, but it's actually Dart is a modern language with like a lot of nice benefits. And one thing about Dart is it's open source. So you can actually shape the language, it seems to understand what you need of it. In addition to this, all of its features and all of its semantic knowledge helps us to have a better understanding about a different platform. Obviously, we are not going to talk about how good a language it is to learn Dart here. Dart has ahead of time compilation and just in time compilation. Just in time compilation helps us to communicate with sockets with our virtual machine. So we have something called, and this hot reload is actually, if you're coming from, for example, Android or iOS, big treasure. So whatever change you make will keep the state of it, and it will help you hot reload everything that you have on the screen. And hot restart is with the same logic, it will help you to refresh all the states as well. So with the just-in-time compilation that it has, it will help you to have a better development experience. And also, from the data structures, you might heard about something called trees. And Flutter is using tree structure a lot. So we will about it later on. So one thing that we have something called shaking. What this means is, as we all know, we might have like libraries and classes and etc. that we have. And for example, in in Android, we will have a different approach actually to be able to get rid of the things that we don't use. But Flutter helps us to get rid of this extra information, so extra classes without needing our help. So with tree shaking, it will basically shake the tree out of it, and all the information that we don't use will always imagine it this way. Won't be basically deploying all of these information into our code. Another thing is
Yep. Okay, I'm so sorry, everyone. We had really big issues with the internet connection, and Muhammad is really sorry. And we somehow tried to fix that, but there is really, really bad weather over there, and hopefully Muhammad will be with us soon. Even though we're connecting via LAN, the old school ways, but it's just sometimes it's not working, and the universe is not on our side. We will wait a couple of minutes. Hopefully, Muhammad can come back. I don't know if we don't have any message yet. We'll try to ping him right now. At least you can ask. You can use the. You can use the. Yeah. So Salih is just texting us. Excuse me. So you can ask the questions on Slido. Right now, if you have any, just use the break, the very short break. Yes, you're stuck. I'm sorry. Just fixing this with Mohammed. And we'll have like really short commercial break. Let's call it commercial break. Production, please. Thank you. Yeah, welcome back. Can you hear us, Mohammed?
I can hear you.
Great.
Yes.
So the stage is yours again. We can continue now. Hopefully, it's gonna stick with us, and we'll have luck on our side. I'm out.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry for the internet outage, everyone.
internet is out again. Never mind. Well, then I'm gonna ask you some questions on Slido, so you just don't sit here and wait for something to happen. If you go to slido.com, or you can use the app, there's what is there? I need to go there. There's already a question. Thank you. Easy way. Well, hopefully, we'll have Mohammed come back to answer these questions. I'm not sure how we're gonna do the speaker's corner with his connection, but hopefully, it's gonna be good. Um,
I
I
think I'm back
hope. Oh,
again.
yeah. Great.
Yeah, this is like a really,
N-
this is like a nightmare to me.
Yeah,
But
never
anyway,
mind. We all understand. We all been there. Is the 21st century first nightmare to have bad internet and have it down. Please
yeah,
continue, Mohammed.
I'm. Uh, what I was talking for is actually, let's go back a bit to go over what I was talking about before the connection was going down. Is basically Flutter is rendering its own engines with a special graphics engine called Skia. And the Skia engine is an engine created out of the V8 engine of Chrome. So the Chrome team actually gathered together. They just got rid of a lot of web stuff out of the V8, and they had a really nice rendering engine for the graphics. And that's why they wanted to work with this and build a nice cross-platform development kit on top of this engine, and that's why we are using Skia. And what Flutter does is actually quite straightforward. Whatever we have is we don't ask for, yeah. Do you hear me or not? Am I online or am I on the?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So what Flutter does is they just render their own widgets. What this means is it will ask for only a canvas from your device, and it will draw everything on top of it. And with its own rendering engine, it will be performant. And when you look at the higher level, you just write a Dart code, the widgets get rendered, and when you render the widgets, it will be drawn on canvas. An event is basically what you have in the touching points, or basically whatever you have in your Flutter approach. Like you might have on tap, on double tap, or like on like finger down, double tap, etc. All of these happens here as well. But as you see, everything happens from the Dart code, and the rendering part happens in your engine side. But we are seeing also something called platform channels here. One thing that a lot of cross-platform approaches were missing was to be able to use the platform specific stuff. What do we mean by this? Like camera, sensors, Bluetooth, location, all of these stuff is basically coming from the device specific, operating system specific information. So for these, Dart has some Flutter has something called platform channels. These are like logical that we use to send byte and data alongside it. They're super fast, really performant, and this way they actually work quite nice. And for with the Flutter on the higher level, you can see that you write the Dart code, and underneath it, it does the operations for you to get the information and actually deliver the product that you need. So let's talk about how it works in the lower level. Now we saw that, yeah, you write Dart code, it draws everything to the canvas, and etc. etc. Let's go to the lower level point. In the lower level point, this is a classic diagram that you might see in a lot of Flutter documentation. And what it does is actually it shows you how things work. So basically, you have an embedder, engine, and framework. All three are independent from each other, and you can see them also open source as a GitHub project, and you can be part of it on Flutter itself. So as you see here, in the framework level, they use Dart. In engine, they use like C, C++, and embedded part is using platform-specific languages. So they implement whatever they have according to their target platform. From this perspective, from your perspective, you will be mostly hanging out around the material and Cupertino part of the framework, like very, very high level. Why very, very high level? Because Flutter wants to make your development life easier. So all the hard work is happening behind the scenes for you to make things fun and easy.
Again, we have a break again. I'm so sorry, folks. Well, it's weather, and you can't just you can't be the boss of the weather unless you can do, I don't know. We can use some conspiracy theory how to actually have a weather we like. I have an activity for you until Mohammed gets back. If you open Slido, I have prepared a lovely word cloud for you, and I would like to know what is Flutter's best feature. Can we show? Yes, thank you, production. And please go on Slido on mdevcamp and vote on the castle stage. What is, in your opinion, the best Flutter feature?
Again, I'm back. Oh my
Ah,
God, like
Mohammed is back. Okay, we can use that again later.
yeah,
Okay, Mohammed, thank you.
for
Welcome back for
compensating
the
this.
third time.
Third time is the charm. Third time is the charm, I believe.
Hopefully, hopefully.
Uh,
Great.
yeah, I'm really sorry. It's like it's not something that we can control. It's this interesting weather. Anyway, so what I was talking about the material here. Material and Cupertino are basically the higher level widgets that you can use to actually implement your application and implement your approaches for the application that you have. But as you see, there's lower level parts of it, like widgets, rendering, animation, painting, gestures, etc. And you might be wondering, as good citizens, as good as you might be wondering about how this works. And you just write your widgets, yes, and everything works perfectly. That's great. But what if you want to learn deeper? And for this, now we will learn three essential tree structures in Flutter itself. They are called widget, elements, and render objects. These three concepts come together and actually brings us the performant Flutter that we know. So let's go. First, let's learn what widget is. Widget, basically, if you have done at least one Flutter project, you have heard about it, I'm sure. Widget is basically the immutable description of a user interface. So whatever you have on the screen as a descriptive UI is basically a widget. So each part of the application can be a widget, actually. So widgets can be inflated into elements, and we will see now what an element is. As we saw, element widget is basically an immutable part. So we want to have a mutation, like we want to change something, application, right? Like we don't want to have a static approach. We always want to have dynamic application. And this part, we have this special thing called element here. Element is basically our configuration file and communication tool for widgets. What they do is they mutate the information about widgets. They just make all the necessary communication with the lower level graphic approaches, and they help us to have this performant widget tree structure. We will go deeper into this really quickly in a few seconds. And the last thing that I want to talk about is render object. Render objects are basically the graphic tools that we are using in Flutter ecosystem. What they do is they are just handling all the layouting, painting, and size operations. They get the information from the parent and just put it alongside in your application. So, but how does these three trees work together? We are going to see an example now. We will see a simple example. When you create a Flutter project, you will see this beautiful counter application. What it does is when you click on it, it will just update this number that you see on the screen. So we will see how the widget trees change alongside this operation. But let's first see the code that we have here. It's actually quite straightforward. When you create it, you will have mainly these classes. These classes are not super important for you. Basically, the important part is this part that we have here. In Flutter, widgets are mainly going into two different categories: stateless and stateful. It's really immutable UI component for you. Stateful is they are not actually, they are immutable, but they have a state object inside that is helping us to communicate with element so we can have something mutable. So for here, you see we have the stateless widget that is just like showing data. And we have the stateful widget that is not like, that is just saying that, okay, I'm a stateful widget. And the real hero here is state element. Basically, state element, each time that you click on the button, it will call this function. It will change the counter and set the state to the new element. It will say, okay, something had changed in the state. And the build function here is the place that we put our real UI elements, which is basically, it will show an app bar, and in the center of the screen, it will show a text, static text. You have pushed the button this many times, and it will say, here is the counter value here that you see. So now we know our project, quite straightforward, as I said. Let's talk about what widget is. At this point, this is our descriptive part, the widget part. But how do we know this widget creation happened behind the scenes? One thing that I like about Flutter is everything happens open source. Everything happens behind the scenes. You can track it down. So let's track it down. If you go to text, it will show that it comes from actually a rich text class, which is a multi-child render object widget. Okay, we have some like common names here: widget, render object, etc. Let's continue. The child render object widget comes from render object. Again, render object widget, render object and widget sounds familiar. Let's go one step down. And render object widget comes from widget. Here, that we define is actually a widget. But why do we have something called render object widget? As we talked about before, when you create a widget, you need to have an element and you need to decide on the render object as well. But this is too much of a custom operation. So for dealing with this, for helping us out, they even in the behind the scenes, they even created some nice widgets to handle render object for us. And that's why we have object and render object widget. So once you have it, you will know that it will have some render object elements for you, and it will not do this extra layering. But if you want to deal, you will be seeing that this is actually a widget. So from our example, okay, now we know that text is a widget, which was something that we were thinking about probably, but we are sure now. Something we are going to see the element part. If you go to the rich text classes implementation, you will see something like this. What does this mean? First of all, when you just want to extend a widget, it will ask you to override a method called create element. Because, as I said, every widget needs to have an element to deal with the operations for the communication with the render objects and etc. It says, okay, this rich text has a multi-child render object element. This multi-child render object element is basically an element that is helping us out with the render object communication. So behind the scenes, this multi-child render object element creation happened for us in the Flutter SDK. So now we know that, okay, we need to create an element, and for creating an element, we are some from the Flutter SDK because they have this abstraction for us. But let's go and see Flutter render object element. This multi-child render object element. Basically, it gets the multi-child object approach and uses it as a configuration, but at the end of the day, it is not, it uses render object element. I'm saying a lot of render object because render object is the biggest part of the Flutter that is doing a lot of graphic operation. Like it communicates with GPU. I will talk about it in a second, but everything is going around it, so we can actually, we don't have to touch it, and it actually helps us to implement it. So if we go to the render object element, you can see that it's an element. Element is a special tree. I think it's the most important tree in the Flutter ecosystem, and it holds a lot of information. It holds a lot of knowledge about our project itself. More than widgets, I think we should praise our elements here actually. Because, like, for example, if you have done Flutter at least once, you would know, you would heard of something called build context. And this build context is actually an element that is basically helping us to go through the tree, get some information, and pass it down so we can use it either on the widget side or in the render object side. So now we know that, okay, in the text, we have a multi-child render object element that is helping us to have this element approach. So far, so good. Let's go to the next one. Now we know that. The next one is render objects. If you go to the rich text, as again, it will, like, once you extend this, it will ask you to override a render object method. It will say create render object. What render object does? Render object is basically getting the information that you have about your screen, about the pixels that you want to color, and about the information that you want to put on the screen. All these operations gets passed down via element inside the object. And this will communicate with GPU and the graphics card, whatever you have, to draw the information on the screen. So what we have here is we have something called paragraph, which is, in this case, our render object. It holds the information for text, text align, text direction. As you see, again, this is an abstraction over some complicated implementation. So they help us again to actually render some text. Let's go one more step down. If we go render paragraph, we will see render box here. It's basically, so once you deeper in Flutter, you will have boxes and you will have slivers. Boxes are basically some set of elements that are drawn in the 2D Cartesian ecosystem. So once you have a box, you will know the height and width and the place that you want to fill out in the moment that you draw the graphics. But in here, but in slivers, you can be more free. But this is another topic. What we have here is, okay, now we know that we have a render box. This is a box. So this means that we know our 2D Cartesian information and everything is clean. And what we are seeing here is, what we are knowing is, we have this render box. Let's go to the render box. It is a render object for the box Cartesian, 2D Cartesian. So we know that, okay, text had an element, and an object, like all the widgets that you can think of. So now we talked about so far what is a widget, what is an element, what is a render object, how it creates it. But we still haven't seen the performance part of it. Like, let's see, when I update my counter there, how does this thing happen? Let's learn about it. For this one, we will use Flutter's development tool. And this development tool will have to see what is the object. You will see a bigger version of it. So if you don't see it now, it's fine. I just want to show you. And if you don't see it, as I said, you will see the bigger. What it will show us is it will show the render object. It will show the elements to us. And when we update, we will see that actually a lot of information is getting used again. So in this video, hopefully, we are going to be seeing basically this 0 here as a text going down. You will see the render paragraph number, which is, let's see it so I can show you in the other part. It's like 76E0C. It's fine. Everything is in the right place. As you see, nothing is changing. And when you refresh the tree, so after you tap the button, you will see that it's 1 again. And once you go down, you will see that it's 76E0C. So that means that some parts of the app is actually reused, even though you are updating. But let's see it with visualization. As you see, it's the 76E0C. So we are keeping the render paragraph object. And when you update it, it is still there. So we know it. But as I said, let's see it from the graphics part. I have a text here, okay? And text has multi-child render object element. We know it. And we have the render here. So everything is already about. And we have, let's have an update. Now the text is 2. So behind the scenes, there's a method called canUpdate, which means that it will go and check out the current information from the widget itself, and it will check, okay, are they the same type? Like, can I use the same widget here? And if they are the same type, it will not recreate this widget tree itself again. What it does is it will go and say, okay, like I already have this element here. I already have the render object here. Why should I recreate it? I will just dispose these unnecessary disposable widgets, because widgets are spendable. They are not heavyweight. They are like super lightweight, and actually they are like helping us out with our information transfer here. So as I was saying, if we have the same type, we are using the previously created objects. If we don't have the same type of objects, then we are creating our elements and render objects one more time. So let's recap. Flutter's technology choices helps us to have a better development environment. So they help us to have maximum performance, maximum graphics with minimum effort. Flutter doesn't have only widget tree, they have actually a lot of tree structures within their SDK. Like we learned today about widgets, elements, and render objects, but there's also like semantics for example, accessibility. So they heavily use this tree structure. We learned that widgets are disposable, so we can get rid of them. We don't have to like stick with them. And elements hold the widget information for us. They are the real heroes. And render objects do the drawing for us. One thing I want to talk about before I close is please read the documentation and source code from Flutter. This is what you will get if you simply click on Command B or Control B in your computer, and you will see a lot of information. Everything that I talked about is already here, but I already put some extra information for you in case you want to learn even more deeper. or if you want to hear other opinions. And I also put some video resources as well just for you to watch. If you are not a reader, you can see it as well. Thank you very much for bearing with me with my stupid internet connection, and I I really really appreciate it. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yes, thank you, Mohammed. No worries. It's just life. It can happen. And I'm gonna ask protection for the slide view because we have a question there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's yes, we have questions over here. How easy is to expose native features into Flutter?
Actually, obviously you need to have, so by easy it is easy, but obviously you need to have native information. But luckily Flutter has a great community and the team actually helps a lot. So a lot of native information that you might need is out there with some information, some uh, packages that you can use. So what you can do is you can use platform channels to communicate with the native part. They are like they have light channels, they are not costing you anything. But if you don't want to do it, if you are an Android developer but don't know iOS and vice versa, you can actually use the already ongoing packages, and I'm sure there is one for your need.
Thank you, Mohammed, and thank you for the question. Another one: how can we integrate Realm into Flutter app?
I think right now we don't have a Realm support for Flutter app itself. From my knowledge, we don't have it. Like
And
we
that's
don't have
said by
native
Google
support for it.
expert.
Yeah.
Great. We have still some time. If you have another questions for Mohammed, please ask him on Slido. If you don't want to ask on Slido, Mohammed will be in Speaker's Corner for about 15 minutes. You can find the Speaker's Corner right next to the spawn point when you enter the 3D world. It should be very easy to find. Just enter the world, and somewhere around you there will be Speaker's Corner. We are Castle stage. So if you're looking for Mohammed, he will be at the Speaker's Corner from the Castle stage. And another question. Great.
Mm.
Can we show that question? Great. Oh, it's yours,
Yeah,
Mohammed.
okay, I can see it. Yeah, Flutter seems to have focus on UI. Can I do full-grown Android and iOS apps with it? Flutter focuses on UI, yes, but the reason is they want to give you freedom on the UI side because from the business logic performance side, you already have the answer for you. Because Dart is a robust language with extra features, like as I said, like ahead of time compilation, just in time compilation, and so on. It has a masterpiece of a garbage collection system, etc. It has a lot of performance, like logical performance part. On the other hand, Flutter wants to focus on UI because it wants to do something that you don't have. It wants to give you freedom, all else that you might. That's why Flutter is different. And to answer your question, you can have a lot of, uh, you can see a lot of another application written in big companies because you can have a robust and big application. Like right now, for example, Philips Hue team is going to the Flutter for all the applications that they have. Like this is a European company that we all know, Philips Hue. On the other hand, I'm going to give you the classic example, Alibaba, Groupon, Capital One is using it for like 2 or 3 of their apps. I'm not talking like, for example, my bank, we have like 100,000 active users per month, and we are just a startup. And we are highly satisfied with what Flutter brought us. Okay,
Another
cool.
question
Next
for you.
question.
When
Yeah.
can I do Windows app with Flutter? That's a very interesting one.
Yeah. Okay. So I will be honest with you. So Flutter team right now is highly focused on web. And the reason is like they want to focus on web because they want to deliver it faster for their clients and stuff, obviously. So their Windows part is actually relatively small. Windows team is relatively small, or like desktop team is relatively small. I'm not sure at the time. If I knew, unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to. But I say that they are highly working on it, and um, most likely after web, I think we will see high focus on desktop itself. Right now, you can do it, you can get outputs, but obviously there are some open issues that you would be facing. So it's just in technical preview right now. So it is not 100% ready. So you can play around with it. Actually, one of the speakers that we have here, Dominic, has great talks about it. Like he's an amazing desktop developer, and he also knows about more about Flutter Desktop itself. And you can see that yes, it has its own flaws, but at the same time, it is open for experiments. But for fully 1.0 version of the desktop, wait a bit.
Cool. Thank you very much, Mohammed, for your answers.
Yeah.
If we have any other questions, we're gonna wait a bit, maybe a minute or two. Yes,
Okay.
there is. Oh, another one, and it's a bit longer. If there is no Realm support at the moment, are there any other recommended persistence libraries to use along with Flutter?
I mean, um, there are a lot of ways to persist your data. Like besides Realm, like mainly the focus was on actually, let's put it this way, SQLite database structures for the real database approach that you want to have, if you want to have it in your app, you can use that. But for simply persisting data within your application, you can just use also shared preferences package, which is using Android shared preferences or iOS's, I think, what was it? Keychain or something like this. So it is helping you out to just have basic keyers in your app as well. But the main focus is on SQLite, but maybe there is also something called, what was it, Hive. People are using it a lot. So you can use Hive as well. So my main focus is on around SQLite and Hive at the moment for the database persistence, and for the device level persistence, it's shared preferences.
Great. Thank you so much for your talk and your answers, Mohammed. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much to the
Yeah.
audience. I was told by production there's hundreds of you watching and asking the questions. It's great. Unfortunately, we cannot see you. This was
Yeah.
last question for the Q&A, but if you have some other questions, as I can see at the Slido, there's another one. I'm going to approve it so you can read it in the speaker's corner and you can
Hmm.
discuss it. Muhammad will be there for another 15 minutes, and then you can find him probably browsing at the 3D world. The
Yeah.
speaker's corner again is right next to the spawn point when you enter the 3D world. And if you're tweeting, use the hashtag mdevcamp. If you're asking questions, again, use the code mdevcamp on Slido. And we're gonna have a short break. But before that, I can't forget again. Please go on Slido and vote for Mohammed's talk so we have some kind of feedback. The poll is already running, so you just give it hopefully 5 stars. The internet, it's
Don't
not
mind
an
the
issue.
internet. Yeah.
Don't mind the internet. It was great. You saved the day, Mohammed. Thank you very much. And we'll see you
Yeah.
later today. And thank you very much to you, audience and attendees who are here with us in DevCamp 2020. So please rate the talk and we'll see you in a bit. Thank you.
Goodbye.